Hello, Seljan again, and welcome back. So we will follow in this robot head tutorial going through the basics, how to manipulate objects, what type of objects we have, and just an overall understanding on how to move and explore 3ds Max. Okay, so we are quite good with the eyes, but definitely we have a missing mouth. Now the mouth should be something like this, so it will be a kind of a rounded rectangle that has a rounded shape. So, and of course later on we can create the teeth within. But right now we are just focusing on the outline of the mouth to give this kind of a lip look. Now to do that we have many ways. I'm just showing you one way that's different from the previous ways and has its potentials. So for now we will use a new type of object. It's not a standard primitive and not a geometry. It's a little bit misleading. It's a geometry. Everything is a geometry that has a kind of a location in space, but it is much more like a 2D shape. So instead of an instant 3D model geometry, it will be a 2D model geometry. And now we're switching to shapes. Still we are on a create panel, and the shape we're looking for is the rectangle shape. And because I want to place it on the face and I want to place it on middle, I'll try to create it right in the middle. To do that I will use AutoGrid. Remember, AutoGrid can recognize our surface, and hence we will be able to put it right on the face of a robot. Probably the creation method can help me out. This one is set to edge, but what if I set it to center? So I hope that when I'm starting to drag it out, it will start from the center, and this way it's a little bit easier to locate the position. Alright, so let me just release and turn it around and see it for myself. Okay, it's definitely it is laying down on the surface. Okay, so I did two additional steps. One is I was turning on AutoGrid, and two, I was changing the creation method before I've actually started to drag it out the rectangle. If you're just using the standard edge method and not using AutoGrid, this is what happens. You're creating from the corner, you have to drag out and finish the rectangle as it is. And because there's no AutoGrid turned on, we are using the default top plane like every time in perspective as if you are working out of the box. Alright, so now let me delete this one because it was just for the demonstration. And look at this mouthpiece, because hey, it is there, I see it, but it is not a 3D geometry yet. And it is not rounded either. So what I have to do is just, because I want to modify it, again, where do I do my modifications? Of course I do it in the modify panel. So I have to move to the modify panel and look for solutions. So what type of solutions? Right now its parameters is open, and something catches my eye that here's corner radius. Okay, let me just play with this by just simply dragging. Oh right, I see it. Now the problem comes if the radius is higher than, in this case, the length value. So I was almost dead on with almost an inch, so it's 2.5 centimeters. And if I divide it into 2, that means if I reach somewhat 1.26, it will start to overlap. Now, this is what I want to avoid. Let me show this. Now it's emphasized. It's way over 1.5. So even 1.5, that's half of 3. And as you can see, this is really hard overlap. I don't want to create an overlap because later on it can mess my geometry. So I will try to, okay, let me make this a little bit easier, 2.5. And I can be safely around 2.2. That's, if it's doubled, it is around 2.4. 1.2, it's 2.4. So I can be sure there's no overlap here with the vertices. Okay, what's next? We have to make it 3D. So that is depending on the rendering options. How is it rendered? If it's rendered as a wire, this is how it looks. If it's rendered as a 3D mesh, this is how it looks. Now we have two ways. The reason is this solution is often used for rigging. And in rigging, you don't want to see it in the final. And these are just helpers when you are rigging and using these shapes as helpers. So we can split this up. If you want to enable it in a renderer and enable it in viewport, this is how it looks. That's nice. Okay, so that's nice. I think it's still too close. So if I want to make sure, I still have to lower this value. So I still need to clean this up, and 1.1 will be actually the safe zone. Okay, so it's not just mathematically matching. You have to check the geometry for actually how it behaves. Alright, but you get my point. It looks quite promising. Even if it has not much of a resolution, it's quite good. If you want to increase the resolution, you can do it in interpolation area. So interpolation here, you can add more steps, and more steps will create a little bit more density, and we'll add more density along the spline. Okay, take a look. Look what happens. So we have two values here. One will be the interpolation. That is about the pass resolution. That is about how the curve, the original curve without the mesh, how this one is behaving. Let me lower it down extremely. Okay, this is the steps 0. It's basically it's a chop. So if I'm increasing it, it's one step smoother. If I'm increasing it one step smoother, 6 is the default. Let me set it to 8. And now let me turn back on the coordinates. And here we have sides. Alright? So one way to adjust the pass, you have to go down and use interpolation. If you want to change the sides and increase that a bit, you have to do it in this viewport. Now, you can do so many things with splines. This is why I wanted to share these, because these are real practical if you have to do pipes, if you have to do some basics. You can even change it to a rectangular. So even if you want to create a sidewalk or a very basic floor plan, you can use rectangles and every type of shapes quite effectively. But let me keep it at radial, and this will be head and mouth and outline. Oh, lips is shorter, so I like to keep it as short as possible, but still kind of a telling name as required. Okay, now what else? We want to create teeth, but teeth are not that sharp. So if I'm isolating this box and take a look at here we go. This is the original box. Let me turn off the visibility of the taper, so I want to see what's the original. This is too sharp. I will not believe that this is good for teeth. So what I want to do, I want to create something that's softer. So let me leave isolation mode and look for it. And I want to create something softer here. And 2 in a row. Okay, so upper teeth and lower teeth. So I want to make a little bit of a play here. So go to the plus and go back geometry, because yeah, teeth definitely should be kind of a 3D model. So we need a kind of a volume here. But honestly, I'm not really curious about box. We already used this, but this is sharp. Teapot, oh, no way. These are not working. So what to do? We have another level called extended primitives. Wow, extended primitives. So these are not so outrageously extended. These are just one level up, so we have more ways to adjust our things. And what we are looking for is the chamfer box. So chamfer box is selected, and I will go to the auto grid method. So chamfer box active, then I will be able to turn on auto grid. Then I'm moving in and make a tooth here. Now, again, creation method. Let me turn this a little bit sideways. It will be a little bit more telling. So hold down, drag it out. This is the foundation. This is the base of our object. And I'm releasing left mouse button, pulling it again. This will add the height. Right now the height is pointing towards us. And I'm clicking again. It means accepting the height, but I'm not ready yet because it is a chamfer box. So I have to go up or down and add the overall all-around fillet. And I like it this way. Good. So let me complete this. Right click because I don't want to create any more now. And I will push it in. Now, here comes another idea. And this is crucial when we start animating, to understand that when you're just modeling basic things, and as soon as possible, I want you to help. I want you to jump in the harder and more complex modeling if possible. But for that, you need to understand the very basic concepts, and we are walking through these. Now here, the geometry is moved respecting the world coordinates. So X, Y, Z, this is the orientation. So if you rotate this around, there's nothing fancy. The X and Y axis are both parallel to the ground, and the Z is pointing upwards. But the object itself is not. So how could this happen? Now, by default, we are using the world view coordinates to simplify things. If you don't have any slanted surface you want to build on, and you don't have to worry about tilings falling up from the rooftop, you are not interested in this kind of an axis issue. But as soon as you start rotating and moving things in the 3D space, like a hand of a figure, or you know, you want a special rotation, a special tilting regarding to a hierarchy, like a bone hierarchy, you have to take care of the actual location and local angles. Now, for that, I will choose, so that is Alt right click, and here you can select different modes, and the same thing happens here. So local mode is selected, and can you check? So this is what happens. Just hold on, look for the screen. So by default we are in view, and I'm switching back to local mode, and local mode will change up things, and now the coordinate is shown absolutely related to the object. So what does it mean? If you start moving while this mode is active, you will still remain on the surface, okay? So you can easily just sink in, pull it out. But if you are in view mode and you start like rotating in this plane, you can see how it's not really following the surface. Okay, so this is what happens. Now it's floating over the surface. Now it's sinking into the surface because this was a different coordinate system. But if you are using the local coordinate system like this, local, or Alt right click, and you can shift use it back and forth. Now you will be able to move locally, okay, respecting the original orientation of the object. Now it's really cool. So let me pass it away, put it here, and even closer to the end. And let me make a trick. So let me try to move it just slightly. I'm going to keep a gap between the two. And here's a mistake I made. I was skipping the name. So let me rename it properly before I make thousands of it. So let me rename it to head and teeth, because there will be many. And I skipped mouth. Mouth and teeth. And because these will be numbered, I'm starting with 001. And because it's closer to white, I will switch to a different color because it's already very similar to the mouth part. Staying away from the pure whites, but I can skip, select the grayish. And now I will repeat my process. So holding the shift key and dragging it out along the x-axis, keeping a slight gap over here, and it will instantly recognize that I have a naming convention and I'm using 001 as a starting point, so it will be renamed incrementally. I don't have to worry about this. And I don't know exactly how much I have to create, but I guess about 10. Press OK. Oh, it's not enough. So shift and drag. I used an undo, and instead of 10, let me say it's 16. And press OK. Alright, that's great. I will just remove the last 3. And this is what happens. Okay, it's cool. It's not 100%, but I will solve this problem just soon. Okay, so here we go. We have plenty of these. It's great. But here we have a small gap, and here we have no gap. Okay, it's almost there, but hey, what is it? I want to make sure at least look accurate. So what to do? I have to select all of these, and then I can apply a modifier on top of it and move them just by eyeballing, but it will be looking promising. So how to do it? Now here comes the painful exercise. So first of all, what you can do, yeah, you can select the first one and hit Control, or you can go in here and select only the first one and then Shift and select everything. This is one way. Or you can do something else, select one and press Ctrl Q and Alt Q to isolate. Now this is what happens. So when you select one and you press Ctrl Q command means select similar. Select similar. So Ctrl Q. Or you can select by name or Ctrl Q. If you have one item already selected, it will look for similarities in material, in naming, in object type. So it's not 100% perfect. And this is the reason why we are using isolation. Okay? Because if there's a chance you have selected something else, for example the head, because it's also a box type of thing, and you press Alt Q, you will instantly recognize, oh yeah, well, that's a problem. I have selected the teeth, but there's the head too. What should I do? Pressing Alt, clicking on the head is removing from the selection, and I can press Alt Q again. Boom, here we go. Now, I don't want to work with these individually, so what I'm looking for is I can create a group of this. So let me go up here, group, and head, mouth, teeth, up will be the name of the group. And because it is a group, it is highlighted here in bold. Okay? There is no item here. So please recognize, it's not like the teapot we made with instance, because it was named teapot, the model, editable poly. If it's highlighted here with bold, that means it's an individual object. But if you see it here in bold, that is a sign, and it is a kind of an assembly and a kind of a group. Don't worry, if you want to go back, you can always go in here, group, and explode, or group, open. Okay? It takes some caution to work with these groups, but these are quite handy. Then once we are ready with this, we can go back, exit isolation mode. Congratulations, you just created your first group, and because it's a simple group, we can apply a modifier from here. Now, I've used modifiers from here, like the parametric deformer, taper. I was using modifier from here, like the lattice. And here's the other way to use a modifier. If you press X, it will open up a search bar, and you can type in FFD. And it will be FFD 2 by 2 by 2. And that is a modifier. Be careful, because it will bring up so many things. You have to look for it. Sometimes it's a different type of modifier. So if you like to use this, you can use this. It's a great function. that at first time, if you apply something, always read and try to look for what is it actually. Is it the modifier I'm really looking for, or is it a version of that modifier or a different script or whatever? Now the top first one, FFD 2x2x2, will do the work wonderfully. Now as you see, we have no hierarchy here because it is a group and we don't see the individual elements within the group. We only see the group as a one unit, and because there's one thing in common in this group, and that is the recently applied FFD modifier. So that's it. Here we go. Now what is our goal? Our goal is to open up the FFD modifier and access to our sub-objects. We are going under the hood. Every time I will say under the hood, that usually means we are editing something and we are into the sub-object level and we are working with those. Now control points clicked and this one's activated. I'm in edit mode now. So for example in Blender, if you press tab, you are in edit mode. Here if you are selected and model and you press 1, it will land you directly on the first level. So if I'm on the top level and I want to enter editing mode, but I want to enter to lattice, I'm pressing number 2. Okay? And if I'm pressing number 2 again, I'm leaving. If I'm pressing number 3, I'm in set volume. If I want to go back to control points, I'm pressing 1. And if I'm pressing 1 again, I'll leave edit mode. Okay? This is very easy. Number 1, first line in a row. Number 2, second. Number 3, third. If you have 5 levels, that's the element level in any table. Poly, for example, that's number 5. Okay, that's it. So I'm going to adjust my control points and look at this corner. And if I'm pressing F3, again, it's quite handy. If you want to have a see-through mode, you can always switch temporarily to wireframe. Now, please recognize that you have to rotate somehow. So not somehow, but sometimes if you worried, if you don't know, if you can't recognize easily what you see, because we are in 3D, a rotation can help to reveal what we see. So it can clear your vision. And now, okay, now I see these are the points I'm looking for, so I'm selecting all 4. And along the x-axis, I'm switching back to the normal shaded mode by pressing F3 and drag it slightly. Okay, let me look at the other side, how much gap I have. Oh, it's fairly small, so let me just, yeah, here we go. That's it. That's cool. It's not 100%, but well, we are visuals, so that's working nice. Okay, if I want to make a copy, shift and drag, rename it, keep as copy. I don't want any relations between the two, but the name will be teeth down. So it is the same group. It also has this uniformly applied FFD, and it is working great. Now let's make things a little bit more interesting. We have a group and we can already create another group. So we have 2 groups now, selected both, and I can make it head, mouth, teeth, and all. And that will be the new group. And here comes the funny part. I will apply another modifier, but this one it will be an FFD 3x3. So FFD 3x3, what's the difference here? Sub-object level, so here you can see the tiny triangle. Don't forget we have this tiny triangle to open up the sub-object levels. And I'm hitting on control points and F3 to see through the things. And because I have control points here revealed, I can recognize it. Hey, it means I have 3 in a row, every direction. So here, 3 here, 3 diagonally, and all the angles. Now I'm selecting this center area. Oh no, just these center 3 points, and I can give a kind of a smile here. All right, so it's not. I don't want to make it as a frown. It's quite weird already. And maybe if I want to move it up, I can select a side. But hey, issue here. If you're just selecting these with a window, don't forget So when you are selecting these points, you always should use a window selection, because if you are just clicking, that can only select a point. Alright? So select these, and I'm walking on the other side, holding down Control because I want to add these other 3 points to my selection. And now I will be ready to do this. And guess what? I've just moved yet. But if I'm switching to scale, switching just by hitting R, I can use the X-axis, and I can drive it this way. Okay? It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Even though I can, yeah, it was just it is a strong overlap, but it works anyway. Maybe I can pull it outside. Okay, this is how it looks. Right. Okay, so where we started, we just had a very simple chamfer box. And we made a row of chamfer boxes by using the copy tool. And then we made a group. And once the group was done, we applied an FFT modifier on the top part, adjusted it, then shift and drag to copy it, then selected both, created a new group, and on top of the new group, we have applied an FFT 3x3x3 modifier. Okay, so that was it. Now, alright, so it's time to add something else. I know the ear is still missing, but let me make it interesting. Something needs a further explanation, and that is about the center of a model. This center of a model is called pivot point, and the pivot point can and should be manipulated depending on the goal. And let me show one example to understand what is a pivot point and why do we have to take care of it and how. So my idea is to create rivets all along this rim. So a couple of rivets, not many, but a couple identical rivets distributed evenly. So that is the goal. So first I need one at least, because that will be duplicated and transferred furthermore. And that will be a standard primitive now. So I'm going back to standard primitives. And I want to make it a sphere, and I will explain in just a second why. AutoGrid is still turned on, so it remembers my choice of using AutoGrid. And I'm happy with that. I will start it right in the middle here and pull a sphere that will be my rivet, and because I was using AutoGrid, it is really matched on the surface. Now, can you see that it is still a full sphere? And that's good, I like it, but it is not really effective. So if you compare the two resolutions, again, F4 if you don't see the wires, this is, if this one has that low of a resolution compared to the sphere, there's no point keeping this one too low or keeping this one that high, because these are not matching anyways. So let me just pick up a lower resolution. Now, how to do it? Go to the modify panel and change the number of segments. And I'm using spin and drag, 11 or 12. Maybe 12 is better, it's more promising. And to make it a little bit lighter in the computer, let me isolate it, Alt-Q, and see the sphere as it is. And here we have a function called hemisphere. Now hemisphere, if it's 0.5, means it's 50%. So if I'm leaving oscillation mode, now I have a little bit flatter rivet. Now, this one's floating on the surface, and it's not good. My goal is to sink it into the surface, and probably I want to make it a little bit flatter. Now, what to do? As you remember, we adjusted the coordinate system, so it was originally set to view. This is the view, and it's not really good for us because we have an angled surface, so I will switch it back to local mode, and this way I can push it in. Cool. But here comes the interesting part. This was about select and move. But if I want to scale it down, for example, I want to make it flattened a little bit more, not that protruded as it is right now, I'm switching to scale mode, R, this is scale mode, but hey, scale mode is not yet switched to local mode. Okay? So if you are switching back and forth, there is a chance you want to use, for example, the scale in view mode. But if you would switch back to move, select move like W, it will switch back to local. It remembers your choice. Okay? It remembers your choice. Sometimes it can cause trouble. You will see. But just you have to know about this. So we are in select. We switch to local mode. Now, I'm pretty sure that I can flatten my model according to its position and angle in space. Now, and switching back, press W, and here's the model. Now, I want to distribute this all along as a nice rivet. Now, what to do, first of all, if I just want to rotate it around somehow, array it. I'm using array, and my goal is to using array, but right now, the axis I'm rotating around is coincident with the model's axis. Because the pivot point is now at the center of the model. I have to move away the pivot point to match to this rim. Because if I want to rotate, this is what happens. Let me demonstrate it. That's the easiest. You will understand what I'm talking about a little bit better. So here's my array table. Let me move it aside so make it visible. My goal is to rotate things. So I will switch to rotation mode. I want to rotate around which angle? Let me hit on preview. So this is the Y angle. It's not really, can you see? It is there. So we have a couple of geometries here, but these are in place. Let me try Z. Okay, these are just rotating around this axis. Ah, this is pointless. So I can't rotate it around the rim. It is rotating in place. And that is because we have the pivot point coincident with the object. So we have to move it away. Move it away, but where and how? Okay, I'll just undo this because it was accidentally, I've created all those, accepted. So here we go, here's this one rivet, and let me show and let me reveal where the pivot points are. So item selected, and now I'm moving to hierarchy. And within the hierarchy, the first tab is dedicated to pivots. And if you affect pivot only, if this was active, now it shows the pivot point with some kind of a ghosting arrows. It always tells you that this is the pivot point of the model. You can click away on any model, it will show the same thing. It doesn't matter what. Now here we have the rivet. The rivet has the pivot point right at the center of the rivet. And here we have the rim. The rim's pivot point is of course centered here in the pivots of the center of the tube. So I want to align the pivot point of this to the pivot point of the rim. For that, there is an align function. So there's a full align. I can use that one. Or there is a quick align. So I'm holding left mouse button, releasing, and clicking on the model. So please make sure that the rim is highlighted, not eyeball, not the bulb, not the lens, the rim itself. And I'm clicking on it, and hop, jumped. So the center of this rivet jumped, and now I'm done. I'm leaving affect pivot only, and going back to tools, array, and some of the settings. So the rotation was remaining. Which axis? Probably Z-axis, because this is the axis that's pointing on our direction. So let me start. Preview. Okay. And now if I type in 360 degrees, it will generate the necessary number of rivets. Now if I'm not satisfied with the distribution because it's just not enough, maybe I can double it, so let it make it 20. If I want to keep a copy or instance, it's up to me. I like to use instance here. Why? Because I can change up my mind. Maybe I can even create more, 30. That's cool, instance. And I'm pressing OK. And now I have all these. Okay, it's pretty nice. Now, if I want to make a group, how to do it? Select only one, press Ctrl Q, Alt Q to isolate to make sure that what you selected is really what you need. And then you can go in and, excuse me, I was sloppy, but I don't want to go back. So before I make my group, I have to solve this problem. But hey, is there a way to rename these once we're done and we can't go back? Yes, we have a tool for that. From the tools, there is something called where you are. Where are you? Come on, rename object. So the selected items will be renamed as head, as eye, as rim, as R, and rev, and 001. It's quite long, but you can make it shorter if you wish, but it's there in 001, and this will be numbered. And let me rename these, or let me skip these and just add a underscore and numbered and rename. And once it is renamed, here's this 26 and this is 15. So now all of these are renamed. Cool. Let me check. So let me leave isolation mode. Let me open up. And here we go. We have I, rim, R, and all these are numbered. That's pretty cool. So select one, Control Q, Alt Q, and now I'm ready to create my group. And that will be, again, head, I, rim, R, rivets, or rivet, riv, to make it short. Okay, and this is a group, so I don't want to add numbers. Let me leave the isolation mode. And what else? I can just shift and drag, and shift A is quick align, and I can align it to my model and pull it until it shows up, and maybe make a few adjustments. Okay. So what I did technically, again, just let me do it a little bit slower. So let me undo it a couple of times. Here I made a shift and drag copy. And because I want to make sure that the center of this object is matching to the center of the left rim. It's not a perfect match, but it is a good centering. I will use the same quick align, but now I've used the hotkey for quick align. And the hotkey for quick align is Shift A. If you don't want to use that, no problem. You can still use the icon. I just want you to know this. And I can go and set it to local. But right now, because it's a group, it's working a little bit differently. So I have to manually look for that. Okay, ideally, you want to create the whole eye first, or if you want to make it absolutely perfect, you should delete this eye and then make a copy again from this one. Alright, so it doesn't really make a difference. Right now I was just a little bit sloppy and want to make it quicker and wanted to show you that we have a hotkey for align, and there's nothing to worry about manual corrections. If your main goal is visuals and not printing or anything that requires very accurate modeling, you can do that, but it is slower. Alright, now we have rivets. Now you know what a pivot point is. Now you have a gasp on it, so that how a pivot point should be adjusted. So when we are affecting the pivot point, anything that is selected, effect. Now you're ready to move away the pivot point, and then you can click again to exit from editing. It's kind of you can switch between objects, and you can align the pivot point itself. If we have a model here and we start aligning that particular model to something else, it will move the model and not the pivot point, right? So if you experience this, this is because you haven't activated the pivot point editing. Alright, array gives you a preview. So again, just a quick overview what we did. So let me select this thing and go to tools and click on array. It remembers the previous options. So it's really it's worthless to do an array with this one because it has its own center, and that's matching with the pivot point, so it's rotating around itself. But to get through this, you can use the move and also the rotate and the scale at the same time. But you know what? Let me guide you through this because it's really a handy option if you have a scene to design. So just quickly, here's a teapot, and I was using AutoGrid, but there was nothing under my cursor, so this is why it was picked on the floor and placed on the floor. Let me make sure that this is really a low resolution model because I want to create a million of this. So item is selected, and what I can do, I can move away the pivot points, effect pivot, and I'm just dragging away the pivot point. Alright, this is what happened. I have not aligned. There's no object to align. There's no target. I was just guessing and dragging out the pivot point while it was activated. I can go back to tools and go on array. And here we go. So go crazy. So preview. Now we have a row of these. But it's not enough. So if I want to make it more interesting, I can create a helix type of array. So I will turn on move as well, and my idea is to move around vertically. Alright, so vertically, that is the z-axis. That's cool. That's looking nice. I can also rotate in another direction, in another angle. Okay, so I can combine these angles, right? So it's like a crazy roller coaster now. And if it's not enough, I can even change the scale. So I can change it uniformly. That means it will be scaled down in every direction. Okay. So you can create really cool 3D graphics with this, or if you have an idea to create emblematic icons, logos, whatever, it's quite a useful tool. It is also very useful in architectural visualizations, or if you have a set to design, like you know, anything, an animated interactive surrounding. Okay, so that is about scale, and you still can create rows. Now this is something crazy. So once you have this whole thing selected, you can still turn it and still add more in a direction. Oh, it was too much. I was too heavy on this. Okay, you can see, and if I want more, I can add more. There you go. The only problem is you have to be careful with the resolution. So now I'm running a recording and everything. It will slow down. So if you can't do this with complete correctors. Okay, so it's not for that. But if you have a very simple corrector, and we will learn how to create simple correctors, and when they are rendered, those will be smoothed out and much more cleaner. So that will be one of our goals. But right now, this is for visualization and for just testing. Use very simple objects. Alright, so not more complex than this teapot. Teapot is good because you see the orientation of the lid and the spout and everything. Alright, let me hit cancel. And let me delete the teapot. And so that's it for the basics. You can try yourself creating ears. Like you can go cylinder, one cylinder here, extrude, then choose shift. I'm in loco mode, shift and drag it out. Now I have another part of a cylinder, go to modify panel and choose the height, make it smaller. make the radius a little bit bigger. Okay, so now you have a kind of a knob like ear. If you want to make it a little bit more crazy, you can create a kind of a lens around here, or you can create an antenna by selecting this model. Go to move, rotation. You can also switch rotation to local mode, and don't forget we have angle snaps. So when angle snap, A is the hotkey for angle snap. This is the standard snap, angle snap. You can rotate by 5-degree incrementals. So let me hold down shift again because I'm copying this big buddy, and rotate it 90 degrees related to the original, and I can move it here, and I can create an antenna by decreasing the radius using the spinner drag, increasing the height. Okay, increasing the height. Wow, it's cool. Now let me make it more interesting. Let me go to the modifier list and choose taper. Where you are, taper, and add an amount. It's an adjective because I want to make it smaller. Okay, cool. Now let's go up here and try to add a cylinder on top of it. Not cylinder, sphere, sorry. So I'm zooming in, trying to pick the right location. And here we go. Because it remembers my previous settings, it has this hemisphere function. So let me just zero it out. Right click on the value and choose an increased radius, and maybe the segments compared to the whole should be enlarged. Okay, so have a good time, practice a lot. The content I was showing to you is quite dense, but this was required to walk you through all the basics, and we will follow on with polygon editing. But I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time. Goodbye.